Okay, so let's start. So we started now. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So this is part 2 from our last session. So last session, we went over some basics, which was an introduction. So we covered the introduction last session, which was to do with what's Tawheed, what's Islam, what's a Muslim, is Islam a new religion, and which other things did we cover? And the basic things that the messengers taught. So we're able to explain to others whether Islam is a new religion or not. So just a quick recap is, let's see who's revised. So let's see, Alif. What's Tawheed?
Tawheed is a believing in the one Allah. Yeah.
Good. And Umar, Islam?
Islam literally means to submit.
Good. And it's also the name of?
The religion.
Good. And what's a Muslim?
A person who follows Islam.
Good. And it literally means someone that's submitted, isn't it, to the will of God. And let's see, why did God send messengers? Who can answer that? Mustafa?
To teach us about the one true God and what Allah wants from us.
Okay, good. So to teach us, number one, who God is, and then after knowing who God is, the messengers taught us, now what do we do with our lives? So why did God create us? These sorts of questions. Okay, and then we mentioned some previous messengers like Adam, Noah, Jacob, Jesus, Moses, and so on. Yeah, these are previous messengers that we all believe in. So as Muslims, we believe in all the previous messengers, and we believe that the final messenger was the Prophet Muhammad. So then we discussed, is Islam a new religion or not? So let's say if someone asks us, why did Muhammad, peace be upon him, decide to create his own religion or create a new religion? How would you answer that? God Mohis? Do you remember? Okay. Tafsir?
He didn't create a new religion, it was just a continuation of the previous religion of Christianity and Judaism.
Okay, good. So Tafsir has said, just in case I can't hear, so it's a continuation of the previous religions. So that's what Islam is, it's a continuation of the previous religions, like Christianity and Judaism, for example. But what do you mean by that continuation? So remember the two things that the prophets taught, yeah?
It's a continuation because of their beliefs and that their beliefs are the same, but the reason that they're different religions is because of their different laws.
Okay, good. Okay, so we said that all the prophets that came from Adam to Muhammad, the beliefs that they taught were the same. They taught about the one Allah, they taught about the life after death, heaven, hell, the grave, they taught about angels and all those unseen things. So they're all the same, that doesn't change. The only thing that changed from messenger to messenger was laws, and that's to suit the time, isn't it? Yeah, so we discussed all these things. So there's a quick recap from last session. Okay, so now if you look at the title of today's session, now that we've learned how to communicate the basics of Islam to someone else, we know we can explain Islam in a way that we understand what Islam is and they'll hopefully understand what Islam is. Now the next question is about God. Because like we said, Tawheed, our foundation of Islam is to believe in God, isn't it? Okay, so now part 2 is about, now we're going to understand who God is. We're going to answer things like, let's see, what's on the next slide? Okay, so we're going to understand who God is, some reasons why we believe in God, and then the need for revelation. Okay. Actually, some reasons why we believe in God is supposed to come first. Let's see what's on the next slide. Okay, so first we have a first keyword, which is the word fitrah. So the fitrah is, so I want you to write this down in your worksheets, and I'll explain what it means. So the natural disposition of a human being. So fitrah is the natural disposition. So we're in this worksheet, yeah? So the natural disposition of a human being. The natural disposition of a human being. Which means, so a natural disposition of a human being is just things that we have inside of us naturally, without having to be taught. So just things that humans already have inside of us. Like, for example, do humans have the natural tendency or inclination to do good things in their life? Like, for example, to help someone. Does that come naturally within human beings? Just, you know, someone's in need and we're able to help them. We're like, oh, here, let me help you. Is that natural to a human being? Or let's say parents, when they look after their children, do they naturally think, you know what, I want to look after my children? Or is this something that has to be taught to them? By the way, when you have children, you have to feed them. It's something natural, isn't it? Unless obviously someone's natural disposition has been distorted or corrupted.
My does have the wrong sheet. They don't have the one that says fitra.
1 second. Okay, so doing good, that's what doing good for human beings is part of our fitrah. What about doing things that are bad? Is that also part of our natural inclination of the human being?
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes we are. So as human beings, we have both good, the natural tendency to do good, and we have natural tendency to do bad as well, which is also part of our fitrah. Okay, so fitrah is very important when it comes to oneness of God. I'm going to come to that afterwards. So just for the time being, we need to know that fitrah is just natural disposition of a human being. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, I don't have actually. Okay, so the first thing that's going to answer is, how do we know that God exists? That's the first question I'm going to answer. How do we know? If someone was in school was to ask you, by the way, do you believe in God? And then someone says, why? The big why question. What would you say? Can you give it a hands up for now? So would you be able to give an answer that number one will have that you yourself will have firm conviction God exists, and then after that it'll be like, you know what, that makes sense, I should believe in God. Can you give such an answer? What I want you to do before we continue, I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to discuss this question with the person next to you. So imagine a person that doesn't believe in God asks you, why do you believe in God? Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes. So I'm just going to pause this over here now. Okay, so you've had a chance to discuss this question next to you. Okay, so let's take some show of hands. So what did you say? So by the way, it doesn't have to be scientific reasons. It could be anything. Why you believe in God. So let's take from the younger class first. Go on, Idris.
He's given us miracles. For example, when Muhammad ﷺ and Abu Bakr went into the cave of Pharaoh in Hijra, it's not likely, like coincidentally, as soon as they got in, a spider and a pigeon decided to make a nest right at the end.
Okay, good. So some people might believe in God due to miracles from the prophets, but I will come to that though. There's some questions related to that. Yes, Yusuf?
Hadiths, maybe.
How do they prove that God exists?
Because they could say about what God like says about what, like, I can't really explain it, but hadiths can really help by telling you like about Allah and how He helps quite a lot. Really.
Okay, that's true. But the issue with that is, then the problem would be, how can you prove that is true? Yeah. So here in this lesson, we're going a lot deeper. Yes, Ukasha?
For like miracles of the Quran, it's been preserved for like thousands of years, and it's like so many miracles in it. Like for example, just the structure of the Quran alone is like every surah, it's like structured in the same way. And that's almost impossible for a guy that couldn't read or write. And like he revealed it to his companions, and they then made the book. And
okay, good. So through the Quran. So number one, the Quran itself is a miracle. So number one, the preservation of the Quran, the fact that in over 1,400 years, the Quran's been perfectly preserved, nothing changed. And also the structure of the Quran, the language of the Quran, perfect. Umair?
Well, the way the universe started, I guess, because from like the Big Bang, it started because like something came from nothing, right? That is impossible, and something must have like done something to it to make the Big Bang, to like start the universe.
Okay, good. So cause and effect. So if something takes place in the world, there must be a cause. So what was the cause of the Big Bang? Did things just pop out of nowhere? Is that how the world works? And is that what we're used to? Where things happen, they just come out from nowhere. That's it. They just appear. No, so everything in this world has a cause, isn't it? Good, perfect. Okay, so well done. So we have a background knowledge of why God exists. So here, we're just going to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And just so you're able to have a decent conversation confidently about why God exists with others, yeah? So there's nothing really in depth. It's just just standard basic stuff that we should, as Muslims, we should be able to know. So let's just go through. So, okay. So number one, how do we know that God exists? So number one is, I want you to write in your sheets, design and designer. So write the first thing, design and designer. So it says on your sheet, it says, how do we know that God exists? And then it says number one, so you write design and designer. Just write that first, design and designer. Okay, so now let's look at this a bit more. So the key point or sentence I need to say, or you need to be able to articulate properly, is, you can write this down as well. Everything with a design must have a designer. Everything with a design must have a designer. Everything with a design must have a designer. And the key to explaining this is basically, you need to be able to explain this with as many examples as possible to get your point across. If you just say this to a person, that's not convincing enough for them to actually realize, you know what, and get them to start thinking, you know what, there must actually be a God. That's not enough. If you just tell them this basic sentence, everything with a design must have a designer, that is not enough to get that person to contemplate. The way you actually get that person to contemplate about whether we have a creator or not is by using many examples, to such that they're like, you know what, that must be true. There must be a God who created this universe. So let's look at this in a bit more detail. So for example, let's say you're walking in a desert and there's no life form on a desert at all. Yeah. You just, let's say, I don't know, and there's an airplane and drop you in a desert and there's no sign of life around you at all. Yeah. So it doesn't look like anyone living has ever gone here. And then you find a watch. Yeah. So similar to the one on the screen, you find a watch in the desert. So now, because you can't see any form of life, would anyone think that two sand particles crashed together and it created some sort of energy, and over millions of years, this watch was formed automatically? Would anyone ever think that? No, even though you can't, but can this person see a watchmaker, another human that could have created it? No, you can't. But because this watch has a design, you will automatically conclude that he must have had a designer. Is that correct? Is there anyone that would think that the watch turned into a watch automatically? Anyone here? No. Okay, let me give you an easier example of how as humans, we just understand whenever we see design, we automatically conclude there's a designer. Alif, constraint please. Yeah. So let's say on a roundabout, let's say you're coming to Medway, and on a roundabout, it's a green roundabout with lots of grass, and you see on the roundabout that it says welcome in yellow flowers. Yeah. So the whole roundabout is green, but on the roundabout it says welcome. So yellow flowers, and it spells a W, then an E, an L, and C, and so on. Would anyone think this happened randomly? Just by chance, yellow seeds happened to drop here, and by chance, it started to form W and E and L, and by chance just happened to spell welcome. Why not? You can tell me. Yes, Yusuf?
Because where did the seeds come from in the first place? And how would they have placed it? How would it have come so perfectly to make the letters formed?
Good. Who can relate it back to the principle I mentioned? It is?
In like design and designer, someone need to design it into the words. You can't just have it pop up and then say welcome. You need to like put it in the exact place, and you need to design it inside your head, maybe on a piece of paper or something, so it actually makes sense and works.
Good, perfect. And what's that one sentence that can summarize the whole thing? Which sentence am I looking for? Ukasha?
Everything with a design must have a designer.
Yes, good. Yeah, so you always go back to the sentence. Everything with a design must have a designer. Everyone got that? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Everything with a design must have a designer. Okay, so what I want you to do on your number one, just write one example. Write one example. Yeah, so either write the watch example. If you see a watch in a desert, you'll automatically understand they must have had a designer, or write the flower example, Mustafa.
Yeah.
Yes, write one example. Kashir, isn't it? Okay. So likewise, this universe is more complex than a watch or a set of flowers, isn't it? Every scientist will conclude and knows that this universe is very complex. And this universe is much more complex than a watch. So hence, if we can't even believe that a watch can form itself, then how can we possibly, as sane human beings, think that the world just designed itself? Yeah, which does not really make much sense. So once we've written it, then we'll move on. Okay, so number 2 is, I want you to write in number 2 is write cause and effect. Cause and effect. Just write this is a subtitle, yeah? So cause and effect. Okay, then we'll explain afterwards. Okay, and the key sentence, like we in the previous one, the key sentence, isn't it? Mustafa, was the sentence to the previous one? The key sentence?
Everything that has a design must have a designer.
Good. Everything that has a design must have a designer. The key sentence to this one is everything that happens in this world has a cause. Everything that happened, write this down. Everything that happens in this world has a cause. Everything that happens in this world has a cause. This is a key sentence that you explain first, and then you explain the sentence with examples. Yeah, so first you have to mention the key sentence, and then you explain it using examples. Everything that happens in this world has a cause. Okay, so we understand this, every sane human being understands that whatever happens in this world happens with a cause. Nothing happens without a cause. Let's say, for example, there's a banana on this desk, yeah? There's a banana, yeah? So imagine it, so look what I'm gonna do now. What happened to it? Everyone? It fell. This is what we call an effect, yeah? So the effect is that the banana fell. Now, did it fall by itself without a cause? What was the cause, everyone? I pushed it, which is a force, isn't it? Yeah. So a force came into existence by me pushing it. And so the force was a pushing force, wasn't it? And what was the effect? The banana fell. Okay. Can this pushing force just appear out of nowhere? No. So if I didn't exist, would this banana fell? No. Okay. So this is how the world works. Or let's say I'm holding this banana. Let's see who can answer this one, yeah? I'm holding this banana and the banana fell. Yeah, the effect is that the banana fell again. What's the cause this time?
Gravity.
You dropped it.
Gravity.
That's what I was looking for, gravity, yeah? MashaAllah. Yeah, gravity, yeah? So because if there was no gravity and I let go of it, would it have fallen? No, it would have just stayed where it is, yeah? So the cause is the gravity, yeah? So anything that happens in this world, it has a cause and effect. There's no such thing where something just appears or force just comes into existence without a cause there. Everyone got that? Okay. So if you understand this, even with the basic stuff, how can a person think that the entire universe came into existence from nothing? So remember, every scientists agree, by the way, that there's once upon a time, whether it's billions of years ago or however years ago, that this universe did not exist. Yeah, they agree that this universe did not exist. And then it came into existence. They agree with that, scientists, but they say it was a Big Bang. Okay, but then let's say if you do believe in the Big Bang, let's say it's correct, but then how did the Big Bang come into effect? Did it just appear out of nowhere? Let's say the particles coming together or heat energy being created. What was the cause behind that? Yeah, so what would have been the cause behind that? What do we say? Allah. Because do things just appear out of nowhere? No, they don't. And let's say if there was a force that led to the expansion of the universe, what was that force behind it? What was the cause of that force? Because remember, I pushed the banana off, isn't it? There was a force here. Do forces just appear out of nowhere? No. Okay, so there must be, for this world to exist, there must have been a person that was there that caused this world to come into existence. Does that make sense? Okay, so in the slide it says, we all know that there was a time where nothing existed. So what was the cause which brought this universe into existence? Well, what caused the Big Bang? As Muslims, do we say the Big Bang is fake? Who believes in the Big Bang? Astaghfirullah, you're Muslim?
I'm not saying that.
I'm joking. You can be a Muslim and still believe in the Big Bang, yeah? You can be a Muslim and still believe in Big Bang. By the way, even scientists, they don't, there's many different opinion what the Big Bang actually is, by the way. I can't remember where I heard it or read it. I think someone said or read it, someone can't remember. There's like 17 different models of the Big Bang. So even scientists, they're not in agreement what the Big Bang is and how the Big Bang actually works, by the way. Yeah. Okay. So in Islam, there's not many clashes between Islam and science. Yeah, there's not many. Science tells us how Allah created the universe. Science tells us how Allah created the universe. Yeah. So if scientists tell us, by the way, the universe was created through the Big Bang, does that contradict Islam in any way? No, that's just telling us how Allah made the universe. He made it through a Big Bang. At first there was nothing, and then it expanded and turned into planets and universe and stars, whatever. Yeah, one second, I'm coming. Yeah, and what does Islam tell us? The Quran or Islam tells us what about the universe? Why Allah created it? Yeah, so science answers how, and Islam answers why. Because can science tell us why Allah created the universe? No, science can't tell us why Allah created human beings, what Allah wants from us. That's the job of religion. Yes.
So if scientists like say how the universe works and Islam says why Allah did it,
yeah.
How do you explain that evolution? So
okay, good. That's why I said in most of the places there's no clash between Islam and science. Most of the places. There are a few handful of places where the Quran says one thing and science says another thing. So now when there's a clash between what God has said and between the explanation so there's a clash between what God has said about the universe and what a human being or scientists have said about the universe. Which one do we believe? God. Yeah, so whenever science goes against the Quran, we will conclude that Allah must know better how he created the universe. Does that make sense, everyone? So we'll say here the science has gone wrong. We'll go into evolution, why evolution theory is not a fact, it's just a theory, and just seeing some bits and things of evidence that seems like evidence and just jumping to conclusions. So what's it called? Theory of evolution, that's the word. Theory is not a fact, yeah? It's just a theory. Okay. So has everyone understood cause and effect? Yeah. So just write an example down for cause and effect. So write, for example, a banana, I don't know, or even write an example for yourself. So as human beings, we exist, isn't it? So did we just pop out from nowhere, or was there a cause behind human beings coming to existence, or you being born, or something? Or write about the banana if you really like bananas. And once you finish writing, you can start looking at the screen to prepare for the next slide. Okay, so next heading is fitra. So you can write that down, fitra, which is, like we mentioned the definition before, the natural disposition of a human being. So just write fitra. Okay, so the key sentence they need to be able to say here is the first one. Humans have always naturally believed in God, even children. So write this down. Humans have always naturally believed in God, even children. Humans have always naturally believed in God, even children. Okay, so while you're writing, so throughout human history, believing in a higher power or a creator has been something which has been part of a human being throughout human history. There's generally not been like a large number of people that have denied God. Yes, there probably has been one or two people, in every generation or century, in human history, but generally the bulk of human population has always believed in God. It's just been part of our human nature to believe in God. And it's not because of social conditioning, because our parents, their parents believed in God and they taught that to the children, and now it's taught to the children. No, it's just it's just something which is natural and part of our fitrah. Let's say to do good is part of our fitrah, to do evil or bad is part of fitrah. To believe in God has also been a part of a human fitrah. And it's actually not so long ago, there's actually there was a scientific experiment, you can say, that was done to children belonging to atheist families. And they concluded that even children who have never been taught about God, they naturally had this inclination to believing in a higher power, that there's a God, there's a creator. So even children without being taught, they still believe that there was a God that existed. Everyone got that? So this is what we call fitrah, when it's just naturally inside of you. That's why, because it's a part of a human nature, and it's just something, believing in God has been something so obvious, we don't actually even need to prove that God exists. It's like, let's say if someone comes to you, someone wants to debate with you at school, and someone says to you, by the way, the sun is blue. Do you need to start getting out all your arguments why the sun is blue or not blue? You can start bashing your head and thinking, oh, what can I say to argue with him and prove that the sun is not blue? Would you start doing that? What would you say to him?
Look at the sun.
You could, or you could say, let's say the sun, you couldn't see the sun from where you were. What would you say to him? That's true, but you wouldn't say that. I would say, okay, no, everyone already understands that the sun is not blue. If you want to prove that the sun is blue, who needs to bring evidence?
You.
Him. I say you bring evidence, because he's denying something which is so obvious to everyone, isn't it? Yeah. So if someone denies God and says God does not exist, who needs to bring the proof? Them, because they're denying something that's part of our fitrah, and something that human beings have always believed in naturally. So if someone says, I don't believe in God, you prove that God exists. I would say, okay, human beings have always believed in God. You're denying something which is part of a natural disposition of a human being and part of what humans have always believed in. You prove that God doesn't exist. Will anyone ever be able to prove that God doesn't exist? No, they can't. Okay, they cannot prove that God does not exist. Okay. What did you guys, have you guys written anything on the fitrah?
Humans have always naturally believed in God as your children.
Okay, you can just write it. One thing you can just write is, if someone denies God, they must bring the proof for it. Just make a note of that. If someone denies God, they must bring the proof for it. If someone denies God, they must bring the proof for it. Okay, so one thing that people will say when you have conversation with someone that doesn't believe in God is, they'll say things like, why do you believe in God even though you haven't seen him? Why do you believe in God even though you can't see him? Yeah. So if God existed, then we should be able to see him. Since we can't see him means that he doesn't exist. Yeah. So one thing on number 4, I want you to write down this, might be a difficult word, but write it down. It says logical inference. So it says on the left, logical inference. Logical inference. Okay, so we're going to explain that. Okay. Did all of you guys here at one point have a great grandparent? Did all of you guys have one?
Yeah.
Is there anyone here that didn't have a great grandparent once upon a time? Okay, so everyone here. Okay, who's seen their great grandparents? Who's seen them?
No.
Okay, none of you guys. Okay, so all of you said straight away that you had a great grandparents, but none of you have seen them. So why do you believe in them even though you haven't seen them? Why do you believe they existed even though you haven't seen them? Yes, Sukasha?
Mother, grandmother, great grandmother. So my great grandmother must have had a parent.
Why must they have a parent?
Because how else could he be born?
Okay. Umar, do you want to say anything else?
Well, yeah, because there's literally no way that someone can be born without a parent, and that person, that parent can't be born without a parent, and then it keeps going on and on.
So if you didn't have a great parents, would you exist today?
Well, you could be born to another family, but no.
Well, no, you wouldn't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's the simplest way to explain it. If I didn't have great grandparents, I would never have been born, isn't it? Yeah. Because for you to be born, you need great grandparents who had children, who had children, who had children, who had children, who had you. Yeah. So if you did not, so that's a simple way to explain, isn't it? If you did not have great grandparents, you would never have existed. So the fact that you exist is proof that you had great grandparents. Okay. So now let's look at so now a person would say, why do you believe in God? Even though you haven't seen him, what would you say? What would you say? Yes?
Yes, I've never seen my great grandmother, but she must have been born in order for she must have been alive. She must have been a person in order for me to be alive.
Yeah.
Because if my great, I don't want to say all the greats, but at the beginning of time, who would have created the first person to be alive so they could have children, who they could have children, and so on, to you.
Okay, true. Okay, so good. So first thing I would say to that person is the sentence is, the sentence I would say to that person is, you don't need to see something to believe it exists. So write this down. You don't need to see something to believe it exists. So, right, you don't need to see something. You don't need to see something to believe it exists. You don't need to see something to believe it exists. And then write, for example, write the great-grandparent example. For example, we have great-grandparents. We believe they existed without seeing them. Okay, so this is basically what would be a logical inference. Although we haven't seen God, but the fact that we exist is proof that God must exist. Everyone got that? So the fact that we, along with the universe, the complex universe that we're living in, exists is proof that God must exist. Just because we haven't seen God does not mean that God does not exist. So you don't have to see something to believe that it's real. Okay, so far we discussed 4 points that you can mention to others for why God exists. Yeah, so we mentioned 4 reasons. First one was design and designer. Second one was, everyone? Cause and effect. Third one was? Fourth one was? Okay, what I want you to do is explain these 4 to the person next to you. So a person's going to imagine you and I don't want just any sort of explanation. I want you to assume you're talking to a person who doesn't believe in God, not because they just hate God or something, just because they're not educated enough. Yeah. So I want you, so imagine you're speaking, because sometimes someone doesn't believe in God because they hate God and they don't want to believe. Yeah. So I want you to imagine you're speaking to a person, not what those sort of people. Imagine you're speaking to a person, they don't believe in God just because they've never been told about him. Yeah. So you need to explain it with examples. The key to this is examples. If you just say the sentence, everything that has a design must have a designer, full stop, let's move on, that will not get them to contemplate and to think, okay, we actually have a God. We must have a God. The key to this examples. What example did I watch for the design designer? Everyone? Watch. Another example? Flower on the roundabout. Yeah. Another example that many people mention as well, like let's say archaeologists, when they dig up, they go to these ancient places and dig up stuff from the ground. Yeah, so dig up clay and all this sort of stuff. Imagine someone digs up like a clay pot. So it has like a, like a thin at the top, then it goes a bit, bigger, and then, the base. Would anyone ever think, when they dig this up, would they think that this just formed by itself under the ground? No. Why not? Because the sentence is everything that has a Design must have a designer. Okay, there's so many things I can mention. Even let's look at this table in front of me. Yeah, very simple. Has a base. It has this tabletop and it has two legs. Would anyone think this created itself? No, because it has a design, so hence it must have a designer. Yeah, so you can't even contemplate on these simple things that we see around us to be created itself. Then how can we possibly think that the universe created itself? So basically, you can mention example after example after example. Would anyone be able to deny any of the examples? No. Okay, so a key thing to remember, that's why I'm stressing this so much. The key thing to this is examples. Then cause and effect mention examples. I mentioned pushing a banana off the desk. I mentioned dropping the banana, gravity. I mentioned we existing. Cause and effect, isn't it? Yeah. And the fourth one was? No, sorry, third one? Fitra. Okay, so naturally we believe in God, even children. And the fourth one was logical inference, yeah? And their great-great-grandparents. So I want you to do with the person next to you, I want you to give a convincing argument for why God exists, yeah? So I'm going to pause this now, and I'm going to give you a good couple of minutes for this. And try and use it, do it without your notes, yeah? Okay, so let's continue. So one thing to remember is after you give an example, let's say you say the watch in a desert, always link it back to your original point. So don't just say, oh, by the way, if you see a watch in the desert, you'll conclude as a designer, full stop. The other person will be left thinking, okay, what are you trying to prove with that? What are you trying to say? So we always have to link. So with this, you can start with likewise, since this universe has a design, there must also be. So always have to link after the example, link it back to your original point. Everyone got that? So don't just end with an example and that's it. And expect the other person trying to figure out what you're trying to say. Okay, any questions about anything I've done so far? Anyone have any other questions about why I believe in God or anything? Yep.
Yeah, but like, you know how like everything requires a cause.
Yep.
So who made God then? If everything requires a cause, then what's the cause of God?
Okay, we're coming to that, isn't it? That'll be on the other side. We're coming to that. Okay. Any other questions? And if any other classes want to ask questions as well, just write in the chat or you can unmute and ask as well. Okay, so let's continue then. So our next, okay, so now on the screen we have everyone should be looking towards this way, no one should be doing anything else, and everything else should be away. Okay. So how did the universe come into existence? So this is a verse from the Quran, chapter 52, verse 35. Or were they created by nothing? Someone read it again. Or were they created by nothing? Or are they their own creators? Okay, so this is a verse of the Quran. Question. What does the Quran and an atheist, for example, agree upon from this verse? Think about it. What does the Quran and an atheist agree from this verse? We need to establish a base here. Yes, Alif?
I think it said that the word like God, the name that they call God.
These are just names that doesn't really, they're not beliefs.
Why? They made it themselves, isn't it?
Okay, what is?
They weren't created from nothing, right?
But many atheists actually believe we're created from nothing. Or were they created by nothing? Or are they their own creators? What's one thing we can establish as a baseline for a Muslim and an atheist from this Quran verse? It's mentioned in this Quran verse. So don't start thinking, really deep theological mathematical equations. Yeah, it's mentioned in this verse. Do Muslims agree with that?
No,
Muslims and atheists agree upon. Yeah.
But humans create humans. Muslims for like.
Is that mentioned in this verse?
Why are we our own creator?
Okay.
Our own creator.
So atheists and Muslims believe that we didn't create ourselves. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, no, we didn't. Oh, okay, we didn't create ourselves.
Okay. The answer is in the word. The answer I'm looking for is in the word they. What am I trying to say? What exists? What exists? Us, we exist. Yeah. So look at it. Or were they created by nothing? Or are they their own creators? So the Quran is acknowledging something that the atheists also believe in, that do we exist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone, does the universe exist? That's our baseline. Yeah. So we can acknowledge with atheists that we all exist. This universe exists, planets exist, everything exists. Now, but what's the question that we differ on? What's the question?
How?
How were we created?
Yeah, how did we come into existence? That's the point of difference, isn't there? So we establish our baseline that we exist. Now let's look into how. How many possibilities is the Quran giving us here? Two. What's the first possibility? Okay, so did we come from nothing? First possibility. Second possibility. Did we
Create ourselves.
create ourselves? So did the universe create itself, or did the universe come from nothing? Okay, so now let's look at it. So this is the Quranic argument for why God exists. Yeah, one of the Quranic arguments that Allah mentioned in the Quran. Okay, so here there's three possibilities mentioned. Did we come from nothing? Can something come from nothing? Okay, this is the same as saying, imagine you had 0 plus 0. What's the answer?
0.
Could you ever get 0 plus 0 equals 1?
No.
No. So believing that something, okay. So write this first thing down. So write in your sheets, number one, did we come from nothing? So we're answering the question, what are the four possibilities regarding how we came into existence? So write number one, did we come from nothing? So number one, did we come from nothing? Question mark, and then write 0 plus 0 cannot equal 1. 0 plus 0 cannot equal 1. So did we come from nothing? My 0 plus 0 cannot equal 1. 0 plus 0 cannot equal 1. Okay, so this is how you explain, could the universe have come from nothing? If nothing existed, how did the universe appear? So you had nothing, which is what was there, and you get more lots of nothing, then you'll end up with nothing. So that does not explain how this universe or the Big Bang, whatever it was, came into existence if there was nothing. Everyone got that? So we wiped out the first possibility. Now, okay, let's see, then did the universe create itself then? Why can't something create itself? But why couldn't it be itself be the designer? It designed itself.
Because it's not there to create itself.
Yeah, basically. For something to create itself, you'd have to exist, but not exist at the same time, isn't it? Because you have to exist to try and create yourself, and you have to not exist because you're trying to make yourself exist. Yeah. So write point number 2. Did it create itself? Did the universe create itself? So question, did the universe create itself? Number 2, did the universe create itself? And they write no, because it would have to exist and not exist at the same time, which again is impossible. So did the universe create itself? No, because it would have to exist and not exist at the same time. Okay, so the first one is impossible, second one is impossible. And we're left with the third possibility. Was there another being who created the universe? Was there? Is that the only possibility we're left with? There was someone there that actually brought the universe into existence. So number 3, I want you to write down is there was an eternal being. So I want you to write this down. Eternal is very important. There was an eternal being who brought the universe into existence. There was an eternal being. There was number 3 is there was an eternal being who brought the universe into existence. This is the only possibility that we're left with. So there was an eternal being who brought the universe into existence. Yeah.
In the question, it says 4, or it doesn't.
Good, we're going to come to that. Yeah. Okay, so eternal, what does eternal mean? Yep.
Everlasting, never stops. carries on onwards.
Yeah. And anything else?
No beginning, no end.
Yeah, no beginning, no end, eternal. Someone that's always been there and always will be there. Okay. So for the world to have come into existence, there must have been a being who is eternal, meaning that being was always there. There was no beginning point. Yeah. So there was no beginning point to that being. That being was just always there. How? We can never understand because we're not gods. We're not a god. Yeah. So a being that's always there and will always be there. Someone had to have existed for this world like that, with those attributes and qualities, for this world, for the universe to come into existence. Because if there was no one like that, then there wouldn't be anyone to create the universe, is there? Everyone got that? Any questions on this? Any confusions? Okay, now what would be the problem if, let's say, someone said, you know, well, why does God have to be someone eternal? Why can't God be someone that was created? Let's say there's something that was a created thing, and then that brought the universe into existence. If I said that God is someone created, what was the first question you would ask me? Yeah, who created God? Then I say the other God created him. Then who's the other God? And would that just go on forever?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, now the question is, why is that a problem? And that's a problem because, so if you go to your next side of your sheets, it says who created God? Okay, so that's the next question we need to answer. And we need to be very good at answering this. Who created God? Okay, so generally we have a very, very important sentence which you need to remember. So I want you to write the first sentence down. If God was created by someone else, so it's on the screen, if God was created by someone else, we would never have existed in the first place. That is the most important sentence you need to write down. If God was created by someone else, we would never have existed in the first place. Full stop. If God was created by someone else, we would have never existed in the first place. If God was created by someone else, we would never have existed in the first place. Okay, why? Why wouldn't you have existed in the first place? The answer to this is, okay, so we can understand this with an example, because without an example, this could be very confusing. Yeah, because the question, okay, why wouldn't you have existed if God was created by someone else? Like, so what? Okay. Okay, and the reason for that is, let me give you an example. So imagine I have a bow and arrow, yeah? You don't need to imagine. You guys see my bow and arrow?
No.
It's bigger than half of you guys, yeah? Okay, so imagine you have a bow and arrow and you want to shoot the target. But before I can shoot the target, I need to ask for permission. Yeah, so I can't just shoot it. Yeah, so I need to ask the permission. So I need to ask Shahi for permission. So I go to Shahi and say, can I shoot the arrow? He says, okay, wait, but I need to ask Muhiz for permission. And then he goes to Muhiz and Muhiz says, okay, before I give you permission. So I'm holding the arrow in my hand. Yeah. So now I'm waiting for Muhiz. Muhiz needs to go and ask Tafsir. Tafsir needs to go and ask Ifraz. Ifraz needs to go and ask Idris. Idris needs to go and ask Yusuf. Yusuf needs to go and ask Adil. And imagine this goes on for infinity. Yeah. How long would I be waiting for me to shoot my arrow? If it goes on for infinity?
Forever.
If it goes on for infinity and it never stops, how long would I be waiting for? Infinity, yeah? So would I ever be able to shoot my arrow?
No.
No, because I'd be waiting for infinity. Does that make sense, everyone? Yeah? Okay, so imagine God A wants to create our universe, yeah? But he was created by God B. He was created by God C. He was created by God D and then E and F. Would our God ever be able to create our universe? Because he needs to be created by someone else before him. And that goes on for infinity. Yeah? Yeah. So imagine our God needs to be created first, isn't it? To create this universe. If he's not created, can he create a universe? No. So imagine this goes on for infinity. So God A is created by God B, who's created by God C, who's created by God D, who's created by God E, and it goes on for infinity. Would we ever exist? No, because the God that we're waiting for will never actually come into existence to create this universe. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's why this universe could not have been created by someone that himself is created. Okay, because this in philosophy, we call this infinite regress, which just doesn't make sense. There needed to have been something that comes first, that was always there, and then brought the universe into existence. That's why, in your previous answer, I make you write eternal creator or eternal being. This is a reason why. If that being was not eternal, this universe would not exist. Everyone got that? Okay, so I want you to, I don't know. Okay, so I'm just going to read off the screen. So after this example, so this is called infinite regress. So the same logic will apply to God. If God was created by A, he's created by B, and then this continues for infinity, our God would be waiting forever before he's able to create our universe. Therefore, for this universe to exist, God must be an eternal, uncreated being who always existed and one day decided to create the universe, be it in the shape of the Big Bang or anything else. Yeah. So I want you to write this example down. Yeah. So write the arrow example down. So you can write it in your own words. You can write it in brief, in bullet points. So write the example. So I wanted to shoot an arrow, but I needed to ask permission from A. So I wanted to shoot an arrow, but I needed to ask permission from A, who needed to ask permission from B, from C, and this went on for infinity. I'll never get to shoot my arrow. That's what you need to write. Say, I wanted to shoot my arrow, but I needed permission from A, who needed permission from B, who needed permission from C, and this went on and this continued for infinity. I would never shoot my arrow. I would never shoot my arrow. And those of you finished, you can start thinking about the next question. Why do we only believe in one God and not many gods? Who can answer that? Okay, so go on. Let's have a show of hands. Who can answer that? Why do we believe in one? So now that we've established, so you're working through it, we've established that God exists. We established that we wouldn't exist if God wasn't there. We established why God must be eternal. Why couldn't there be like 5 eternal gods or 20 eternal gods? Why couldn't there be a committee of gods that decide which planets to create and when, and like a parliament of gods, yeah? So why do we only believe in one God? Go on. Yep, Mustafa? Sorry, Mohammed?
Because like gods, if one God wanted like this planet and another one didn't, there's this argument, nothing would have.
Okay, good, perfect. So if there were more than one God, there'd be chaos. One God, he wants it to rain. The other God wants it to be sunny. Actually, living in Britain probably isn't a good example, is it? It's like sunny and rainy at the same time every other day, yeah. But let's say the one God wants to destroy something, and the other God wants to not destroy him, or the other God wants it to for cause a person to die, and other God wants him to live. There'd be chaos, isn't it? Yeah. So, but number one, there'd be chaos in the world. And if we say no, one God can't overrule the other, then would they actually be gods? And the power is going to be limited, because if God wants to kill him, but the other one doesn't, but the one that wants to kill him, his power is limited, so he's not able to do what he wants. Is he actually even a god then? No, that's why he actually defines the definition of a god. A god is that person who creates and he causes to die. He has all power over all things. So if there were actually 2 gods that were equal, that would be impossible, because one god must have less power. So hence that person won't even be a god. Does that make sense? Yeah. So number one is, if there were more than one God, then there would be chaos and they would contradict each other and so on. What would be another reason, Mohis?
Oh no,
You know this.
I was gonna say that like pretty sure there's this like verse in the Quran where like Allah says like some like I'm paraphrasing, but like if there were like multiple gods, one would have wanted the other one's kingdom for himself, and the other would have wanted the other kingdom for himself. So that would cause like conflict between the two gods.
Yep. Yeah. So this is what Allah mentioned in the Quran. Yep.
If there were like multiple gods, wouldn't that mean that some would have more power than the other?
Yeah.
To actually sort of like decide the things.
Yeah.
So there'd have to be a leader, and then the rest would be followers.
Yeah. And by definition, the followers wouldn't actually be God, because God has to be someone that's all powerful. Yeah. They could have attributes of a God, logically thinking. Obviously, in Islam, we understand it's not correct. But logically thinking, they could have certain attributes of a God, but will they actually be God? No, because for them to be considered God, they need all the attributes of a God. Yeah. So that's just logically thinking. But obviously, Islam has taught us that there's no such thing as, mini gods or anything like that. Yeah. Okay, so let's go over to the next slide. Okay, so why one God? So we've mentioned a second point. If there's more than one God, their abilities would be limited or the decision would clash. Yeah, so you can write something along these lines if you haven't written it already. If there's more than one God, their abilities would be limited or the decision would clash, or there'd be chaos in the world. You can write anything along, however you want to phrase it. Yeah. And number two, there's a philosophy called Occam's razor. And what Occam's razor is, it's the rule that the simplest explanation is preferred until proven otherwise. And another part of this is entities should not be multiplied unnecessarily. So now that through our logic, have we understood a God created the universe?
Yeah.
Yeah, or an eternal being has created the universe. Now, what's the most logical? Let me give an example to understand this. Imagine I get a phone call. Yeah, I have my phone over here, and someone rings me. Yeah, the number's not saved. It's an unknown number that rings me. Do I automatically assume, you know what, there must be 10 people on the other line trying to talk to me? Or do I just assume the easiest and the most simplest explanation, there's probably one person? Which one, 10 people or one person? Yeah, this is what we call Occam's razor. Or let's say someone, hey, everyone looking this way and focusing in, please. Okay, so we had a bit of an internet problem, so we're back. So I don't know how much of this cut off, but basically we were on why we believe in one God. So we believe that if there was more than one God, there would have been chaos. The decisions of the gods would clash. One God wanted to do one thing, and another God wanted to do another thing. So hence the world wouldn't run. Or their powers would be limited. One God isn't able to do something, so hence he wouldn't even be a God in the first place. And then we had Occam's razor, looking this way. So then we had Occam's razor, that the principle that the simplest explanation is preferred. So then I gave an example, is if someone rings me, do I automatically assume there's 10 people ringing me or one person? One person. So we know that a God created the universe. The simplest explanation is how many gods is that? One. So if someone says there's more than one God, what do they need to do? They need to prove it. Yeah, Umer, be sensible, please. So they need to prove it. Alif, looking this way. Come forward, Alif. Come forward. Yeah. So they need to prove it. Yeah. So no one will be able to prove that there's more than one God. So hence this is why we believe in one God. Through logic. Does that make sense, everyone? Obviously, Allah told us in the Quran anyway, but here we're just trying to establish through logic. Okay. So have you written Occam's razor? Yeah. Okay. So write the 2 points. So Occam's razor, the rule that the simplest explanation is preferred until proven otherwise. We'll continue. Why do we only believe in one God? So Occam's razor is a principle that the simplest explanation is preferred until proven otherwise. The rule that the simplest explanation is preferred until proven otherwise.
Why is it called Occam's razor?
Because razor like shaves things off, so things are unnecessary people.
I mean to apply Occam's razor to you with his start shaving you off.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Shut up.
Okay. Yeah, so part of Occam's razor is that entities should not be multiplied unnecessarily. Yeah, so entities should not be multiplied unnecessarily. Okay, we would have had a discussion on this, but just because we're running out of time. Okay, so now let's look at how the Quran explains who God is. Okay, so does the Quran's explanation of God make perfect sense? Okay, so we've understood just by using our logic, by the way, not by using any religious scripture. Have we understood why there's a God, eternal God? Yeah. So we said that there must have been a God to create this universe. Yeah. So then we've understood. Have you understood why there must be one God? Guys, don't mess around. Okay. And okay. So now let's look at Surah Ikhlas. So in Surah Ikhlas, Allah says, "Say He's Allah, the One." So you can start writing this down. Explain God through the Quran. So let's just start writing Surah Ikhlas. So Allah says, "Say He is Allah, the One." So the Quran is just affirming what we already know about God. What we as sane human beings should already know about God. Say He is Allah, the One. Number two, the eternal, the independent. What's the Arabic of eternal? What's the word that we're translating here? Samad. Good. What Samad literally means. So I'm going to explain this a bit more so everyone can make sure you're listening to this. Yeah. So Samad literally means a translation is eternal and translation is independent. But what Samad literally means, Samad is someone that's always been there and everything else relies upon this being to exist. Who understood that? So I'm going to explain it again. Everyone listen carefully. So Samad is a person who's always been there, eternal, who's always been there. Have I got that? And everything else relies on this one being to exist. Everyone got that? That's what Samad is. And this one being does not need anyone else. Does that make sense, everyone? Yeah. That is Allah. Okay. Do we all need the entire universe need Allah to exist?
Yeah.
Yes. Without Allah would not exist. And does Allah need any of us? No. That's what Samad is. Okay, good. Do you have a question?
I was just going to say, like, an example is, if you didn't want us to be alive, you could just stop us breathing and you just die straight away.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now that's number one and number two. We've understood that from logic. Number three, He did not give birth and neither was He born. Yeah. So Allah is just that one eternal being who does not have a family, He does not have partners. Okay. Because if Allah had children, I'm just going in a bit of detail here. You don't really need to go through this. Imagine if Allah had children, would His children be gods? Okay, so there's two possibilities. Number one, they are gods. And if they are gods, then we'll have the same issue that we had before, isn't it? How can more than one God exist? Yeah. Now, if you say they're not gods, yeah, then that would be a deficiency on Allah, isn't it? Allah will be deficient. Imagine if you had children and your children weren't humans. Wouldn't that be a deficiency in your part? Yeah. So imagine Allah's entity is Him being a fully fledged God. Imagine if He had a children who weren't of the same category. That would be a deficiency on Him, isn't it? That's why Allah logically cannot have parents and He cannot have children. He must be being, He's just by Himself, He's just there. Everyone got that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Because there's only two possibilities if He had children and none of those work out. So again, so we can understand this statement through our logic. Number four, no one is comparable to Him. So everyone should have written these 4 verses down. Now, because is Allah part of the creation? Is He a creation like us? No. Is Allah, so is the universe creation of Allah?
Yeah.
Okay, so since the universe is a creation of Allah, is Allah part of the universe? No. So let's say I'm a creator, I make stuff. I make this table. Am I a part of this table? No. So Allah is a creator. He created this universe. Is Allah part of our universe? No. Since Allah is not part of our universe, let's say I created this table. Do I look like this table now?
No.
Does this table resemble me? No. So likewise, anything from Allah's creation, because Allah is not part of the universe, Allah is not part of the creation, nothing in this universe can actually resemble Allah. That's what Allah says in the Quran. Nothing resembles Allah in His attributes, in His qualities, in His strength, in His being a creator. Nothing resembles Allah in any shape, way, or shape, form. Yes.
My question is it possible that Allah is this the only universe that Allah could have created?
Okay, good question. Allah could have created many other universes. Yes, Allah could have created. Allah says in the Quran that He has created many things that you're not aware of.
Yeah.
So there's many creations out there that could exist. We don't know. Okay, any questions? So here, so in Surah Ikhlas, okay, so now let's just answer this question from the title. So does the Quran's explanation of God make perfect sense?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so it's not like other religions where you believe, let's say, 3 is 1. Does that make perfect sense? 3 beings is 1 being? No, so other faiths that have different explanations, which we say we disagree because they don't really make sense according to our logic, yeah? And the explanation of the Quran just makes perfect sense according to human logic, which we should have understood anyway. Okay, I'm just rushing through this a bit because we're running out of time. Okay, so what can we know about God by merely using our logic? What can we know about him?
He's all powerful
Okay, he's all powerful. Why do we know that without just by using our logic?
because he's created like great things like this universe itself, which most require lots of power.
Okay, good. So if God was not powerful, he wouldn't be able to create mountains or planets. Yeah. So imagine how powerful a God must be for him to actually create these things. Yeah. So number 1, God must have power. So write this down. He must have power. What else? Someone else tell me another one? Yes, somewhere? Okay, he must be all-knowing because God didn't know how to make the universe. Like if he didn't have any knowledge, how would he create something that requires so much knowledge? Yeah, so you must be knowing. So imagine if I told you to create a car, would all of you guys be able to make a car, like a proper car? Even if I gave you all the materials in the world, you still won't be able to create it because you don't have the knowledge. Yeah. So if God did not have knowledge, he wouldn't be able to create the universe. Yeah.
What does merely mean?
Sorry?
Merely.
Merely is like only. He only has this, or yeah. What else do we know about God? Just by using our logic. Basic stuff as well that we just discussed. Basic things about God.
He must have a will.
Okay, he must have a will. What he means by that is God choose to create us?
Yes.
Yes. So if he chose to create us, does that mean he could have chose not to? Yeah, so the fact that he chose to do something means God is a being that can decide things. So let's say this bottle over here, yeah? Can this bottle decide to do things?
No.
So is God similar to this? No, it's just by using our logic, we understand that God is not someone that's, can't decide things. God is a person who can decide things because he's brought us into existence. What else do we know about God? Basic stuff, even the simple things. He is, how many of them? He is 1, write this down. What else about his being do we know? He said that? Yep.
He's older than anything that's ever been in the whole universe.
Okay, good. I'm going to rephrase that by saying he's eternal. He is 1, he's eternal. Yeah. So there's quite a few things we can know about God just by using our logic. Okay, what we're going to do, we're not going to continue, and we're going to finish this in our next session, is we're going to go through what can't we know just by using our logic. Yeah. And then that will lead to us why Allah sent messengers. Okay, so we still got a few things to do. And then after that, we're going to go through, now that we've understood who God is, then we're going to go through basically why is Islam the true religion? Why not other religions? So we're going to look at the reasons for why we believe Islam to be the true religion. Okay, and we're going to do a lot more role play. So what we do for now, the things that we've covered, make sure you go over them, okay?